This is apparently what I do when I wait for my camera to load. Hello, Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, and welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! And Business Casual. I am your host, the RJBZO. Today, I am finally talking about the April 1st, 2014 ban list, as it has been announced finally by Konami on their official website. And yes, it has taken me a little while to get to this because, as I imagine many of you guys who have seen my ban list according to Logic series have guessed, this list took me a little off guard. And the reason is a very strange reason. It's because it actually makes total sense. I know it doesn't make sense that a list that would make sense wouldn't make sense, but the reason why it doesn't make sense to me that it makes sense is because instead of following the usual totally arbitrary patterns that I have been using to predict ban lists fairly accurately for the last couple of years, it actually measures to balance out the format. Notice how, with the exception of Infernities, but screw Infernities, I'm good like, na-na-na-na, na-na-na-na, hey, goodbye. That's my response to Infernities getting hit so badly. Anyway, with the exception of Infernities, the decks that it hit, it didn't hit that hard. It hit enough to balance out the format so they do not have as much influence over the next format. And notice how they didn't kill things that would kill the decks of the future, which is a departure from Konami's usual thing. So this is awesome. I love this list to pieces, and I am going to talk to you guys about it as I read it through. So let's get to work once there we go. So, banned. The only two things that got banned are Morphing Jar and Morphing Jar number 2. First off, I am amazed that Abyss Dweller did not get banned, and I am also very, very happy because this means that my Thunder Family deck, also known as Abyss Dweller Turbo, will still be very good for this format. I'm glad that Abyss Dweller is still in the game because I think that it really balances out the extreme power of decks that can activate in the graveyard this format, so I'm glad that Abyss Dweller isn't banned, but Morphing Jar and Morphing Jar number 2 are gone because of their synergy with Jackpot 7. I'm particularly glad that Morphing Jar is banned because I always run into it against Dark Worlds, not knowing that I'm playing against Dark Worlds, and then I get sacked. So I just don't like that card. I have a personal grudge against it, but it makes sense that they're gone. It makes a card that would be ridiculously broken a little less so, and it stops a degenerate deck from forming before it actually forms. So that is a good thing to see. Let's move on to things that got limited. First off, Coach Soldier Wolfbark. Now, I know so many of you guys are going, I told you so, but here's the thing. Once again, like I said, my ban list predictions are according to the assumption that Konami is going to do the thing that hurts the biggest decks the most, which is not hitting Wolfbark. Limiting Bear would have just totally destroyed Fire Fist, or limiting Tanky, but I didn't think they were going to do that because Boojins. But limiting Wolfbark balances out the deck instead, which is a nice change to see, and it means that I'm going to have to change the patterns that I make. I'm actually going to make a video discussing whether or not a Fire Fist engine can now be splashable into any deck. But Wolfbark to 1 is nice. It balances the deck. It means that +1 Fire Fist is no longer going to be a dominant force. Fire Fist players are going to have to get a little bit more creative, so it balances out the deck. That's really nice to see. I know a lot of people are saying, I told you so, and yes, I was wrong, but this is definitely a departure from Konami's usual style of taking down decks that I've been around for too long. The same goes for Mermails, where they only hit Abyss Gund, which is also really cool because I like Mermails, and this means that Mermails may be a little less expensive, even though they are also going to be a little less influential, and I've always wanted to play the deck, and it's plausible that somebody in my area is going to be finally getting rid of it, so I'll have access to the cards. More importantly, though, it reduces the crazy sack power of this deck. It isn't really sack power since the deck is fairly consistent, but the ability of this deck to just like spam out cards without losing a whole lot of advantage or overextending too hard. So Abyss Gun to 1 is really nice. I'm still probably going to play Mermails for fun because I love the deck and because the Spanish name is awesome. I just learned this Wednesday. The Spanish name for Mermails are Siren Armada. Like, how cool is that? Anyway, can't get over it. Let's move on. Other limited things are Rekindling, nice to see, didn't expect it, a lot of you guys were expecting it, but once again, departure from Konami's usual style, just balancing out the format. This means that Fire Kings are about as dead as they come, but Rekindling is nice to see at 1, since it also limits the power of 3.5 axis, since they had to do that in order to stop that deck from carrying over, since they were limiting Wolfbark instead of Bear. So good to see Rekindling at 1. Infernity Barrier to 1. I already did my little dance about this, but oh my goodness, this makes me laugh so hard. I've never been a fan of Infernities, because they're one of those things where you either beat them hard or you lose hard against them, and one way or another, it's never a fun game. But I know that there are a ton of Infernity loyalists out there who are just like wanting to punt Konami or whatever, but Infernity Barrier to 1 is nice. Once again, this is another thing that my subscribers predicted, but it's just another departure from Konami's style. Infernity Barrier is just one of those cards that exists outside of the usual criteria for Konami to limit things, but it's really good that it's gone, because that's one of the major problem cards. Necroface to 2, why not? Konami kind of has this 2-year rule that, like, after something has been limited for 2 years, it's kind of up for moving back up the list, and Necroface has been around on the limited list for a long time. I'm kind of disappointed that Tengu didn't come back to 3, but I'm also not that surprised. Or that Summoner Monk didn't come back to 3, or a couple things like that. Hieratic Seal of Convocation did get semi-limited instead of Tefnuit, which was my kind of expected thing, but I also did say in the video that Konami often moves things up and down the list if they possibly can, and I did mention that Hieratic Seal of Convocation is a likely hit. So that's nice to see that it's also just semi-limited, so the deck isn't totally destroyed, and I like my Dragon Ruler, so I'm glad that they didn't get banned. I know that everybody else is super pissed that Konami didn't ban them, but I enjoy Dragon Rulers. I've enjoyed the deck ever since the babies got banned and Super Rejuve got banned. But, you know, other people feel differently, and things that came off the list are Primal Seed, which, yippee, it only works while BLS is on the board, and you're only allowed 1 BLS, so if you want to run an extremely inefficient and inconsistent OTK with Primal Seed, then that's up to you, but I feel like it's okay that it's at 3. And then, of course, there's Magical Stone Excavation, which absolutely Jack nobody used in the first place. So this is actually a really nice format. It's going to be just as balanced as the last one was, in my opinion. I thought that the last format was really balanced. It's nice to see that they just balanced out a lot of the decks that were really good this format to slow them down in order for the new decks to be competitive without totally destroying them. That's all a lot of really nice stuff for me, and I'm going to be doing some discussions about specific things involving this limited list, including splashing a Fire Fist engine into decks. My immediate response when I saw this list was to make a splashable stuff deck on Dueling Network, so it's a deck that's entirely made up of splashable engines. It's pretty great. I'll show you guys later. But I really love this list. I'm super happy about it. I'm going to have to totally revamp my ban list according to logic system from now on, but I'm so in favor of this list. So I hope you guys like this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up, and if you didn't, let me know why in the comments section below, and then of course subscribe for more deck discussion, analysis, and general Yu-Gi-Oh! Shenanigans. Meanwhile, thank you guys for watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Business Casual. I'm your host, the RJB0, and I got a jet. See you guys.